Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Naomi Carter, 20, walks quietly across the well-maintained cobblestones of Stanford University's campus. Her canvas bag, worn at the corners, flaps gently against her hip. She doesn't have a designer suitcase or a state-of-the-art computer slung over her shoulder. She walks with the restraint of someone who knows they weren't expected here, but who came anyway. Originally from Detroit, Naomi is the daughter of a night nurse and a garage mechanic. She grew up in a modest house with cracked walls, where the sound of police sirens mingled with the shouts of neighbors. But amidst this constant hustle and bustle, there was an island. His room, a sanctuary filled with algebra textbooks found at garage sales, old college notebooks salvaged from boxes donated by libraries. There, among galaxy posters and scribbled notebooks, Naomi invented a world for herself. Since the age of 6, she has seen the world not as chaos, but as a set of invisible architectures. For her, staircases are sequences, fences are networks, shadows are functions. When she hears a song, she perceives its harmonic structure as an equation. Numbers are not obstacles, they are companions. She does not learn them, she hears they talk to him. At 11, while her middle school class was still struggling with fractions, Naomi devoured a book on non-Euclidean geometry she found at the bottom of a school storage unit. By 13, she already intuitively understood the foundations of algebraic topology. But like many precocious geniuses, she moved forward alone, in silence, in the shadows. It was on an online forum frequented by doctoral students from around the world that she began posting solutions to problems that some were unable to solve. Her pseudonym, EulerGhost42, quickly became a virtual legend. No one knew she was a black teenager from the Midwest. At 17, after anonymously submitting a series of proofs on fractal structures applied to coding theory, Naomi was contacted by a Stanford mathematician, the only one to recognize the intellectual signature behind the lines of latex. She was awarded a full scholarship. That day, her mother wept with joy. Her normally modest father held her close for a long time. But once she arrives at Stanford, Naomi discovers another language. A language not mathematical, but social, made up of discrete winks, networks woven from East Coast private schools, famous names whispered in the hallways. Here, students wear watches worth several rents, talk about internships obtained thanks to an uncle, and display the quiet arrogance of those who never doubt their place. In this hushed world of tweed jackets, designer glasses, and polite condescension, Naomi is invisible. The day of his first class advanced mathematical theory, she enters the Lightwood Amphitheater with walls covered in portraits of prestigious laureates. She chooses a seat at the back, away from it all. She opens her black notebook, whose pages are already scribbled with formulas and symbols. The professor, Dr. Richard Halberstam, enters. He is as straight as a linear equation, with silver hair and a sharp voice. He is an authority in the field, but he also carries a reputation, that of a brilliant but icy man, who has a bad tolerance for minds he has not personally selected. He begins to demonstrate a quick, elegant demonstration, but Naomi, attentive, notices an approximation made a little too quickly, a step skipped, perhaps intentionally. She calmly raises her hand. "Excuse me, Professor, but in the transition between lines 4 and 5, shouldn't we specify the condition on the variable n? Otherwise, the convergence is false, right?" A silence. Halberstam looks at her as if he'd just seen a hair in a soup. Then, in a dry tone, "Miss Carter, this class is not a high school tutorial. Perhaps you should brush up on your basics before questioning what you don't understand." The students burst into nervous laughter. Not maliciously, but knowingly. Naomi doesn't respond. She takes notes. Not the humiliation, but the mistake. The equation. The detail. The days pass. Naomi attends every class. She no longer asks questions. She writes everything down. During the day, she blends into the crowd. At night, she lives in the library, in the basement, where no one comes. She always sits at the same table, between two piles of books, which she consults in silence. Her notebook fills with conjectures, counterexamples, and diagrams, which she explores tirelessly. She doesn't go to parties. She doesn't join study groups. Other students, Even those from modest backgrounds avoid her. Too serious, too quiet, too dark, too different. One evening, as the last lights go out in the library, Naomi comes across an old article on Galois matrices. She opens it, reads it, and suddenly, a flash. A connection she's never seen before. A link to a supposedly insoluble cryptography problem. She scribbles frantically. She's holding something. Something big. But she stops. She looks around. The silence is total. There's no one to listen to her. Who should she tell? Halberstam? The students who have already judged her? The teachers who sometimes call her by the wrong name? She closes her notebook slowly, but she knows. What she has discovered could change the face of computer security. The next day, in the cafeteria, she walks between the tables. Conversations sometimes stop, not for her, but to comment on an article about an influential classmate, another self-proclaimed future Nobel. Naomi, on the other hand, is just that quiet girl who is barely noticed. A black woman, with no famous mentor, no academic ancestor, no connections. In this world, they're not worth much. But in his notebook, ideas are bubbling. And she knows. At the end of the term, in a quieter-than-usual lecture hall, Dr. Halberstam closes his file with the ceremonious coolness he so favors. He stands and addresses the audience in a dry, sharp tone. As every year, Stanford will present a hand-picked team to the Putnam competition. Blake Morgan, Philip Reese, and Jonathan Chong have been selected. Polite applause echoes. Halberstam doesn't say another word. Not a glance toward Naomi. Not even a hesitation in his voice. Naomi remains motionless. Her breathing is calm. Her face reveals nothing, but in her chest, a silent fire ignites. After class, she waits for the others to leave. She approaches the teacher. "Professor, I would like to participate in the competition." Halberstam barely looks up from his leather bag, which he is methodically putting away. The Putnam is reserved for students capable of rigorous thinking. It is not a test of goodwill. His tone is sharp, almost shaken with irony, as if he's just dismissed an absurdity. He looks at her like someone evaluating an improbable statistic, a nuisance in the system. Naomi nods slowly, a small smile on her lips. "Very well, sir." She turns on her heel unhurriedly, staring straight ahead, more determined than ever. That evening, in the hushed silence of her narrow bedroom, she opens her computer and registers alone. A free candidate. No recommendation. No blessing. Just a name on a line. On the morning of the exam, the campus is still shrouded in a light mist. A room has been reserved especially for the test. It's an austere, harshly lit room, where the tables are arranged in perfectly aligned rows, as if in a silent choreography of knowledge. Stanford's top math students are already there. Some are chatting quietly. Others are frantically rereading their notes. Blake and Philip, sitting together, exchange confident smiles, like athletes before a sprint. They have the prestige, the support of the department, and the certainty of being the chosen ones. Naomi enters last. She's wearing an old gray hoodie, threadbare at the neck, and a patched-up backpack. No gold watch. No state-of-the-art laptop. Just her, and a mind honed by years of silence, exclusion, and ignored genius. She chooses a secluded table. No one speaks to her. No one really looks at her. She is invisible once again. But that doesn't scare her. It frees her. The test begins. 6 hours. 12 problems. Each one more abstract and dizzying than the last. Some candidates frown at the first exercise. Others scribble frantically before crossing out. Tension mounts. Sighs are heaved. Lost looks flutter around the room. 2 students give up after 2 hours, their minds shattered by the complexity. Naomi, on the other hand, hardly moves. She reads. She closes her eyes. She breathes. In her mind, numbers are not obstacles, but voices. Every problem is a door, and she finds the key in the invisible structure that connects the shapes. Her pen glides across the paper, precise, fluid. She enters what Zen masters call the state of no mind. For her, it is a pure, mathematical silence. She no longer thinks. She can. She discovers an alternative method for proving a lemma that is supposedly incomputable in a given time. She recognizes a hidden structure in a sequence and extracts a pattern that others would have overlooked. She doesn't solve problems. She traverses them, as if she had always known them. After 6 hours, Naomi calmly puts down her pen. She rereads her answers one last time, adjusts a mark, and then carefully files her papers. When she leaves the room, there's no thunderous applause. No congratulations. Just the sound of her footsteps on the tiles. But she already knows. Something has shifted in the order of the world. And soon, they will know it too. 3 weeks later, the sky hangs low over Stanford that morning. The air carries that imperceptible electric tension of days when something is about to tip over. In the corridors of the mathematics department, a murmur rises, first fragile, then increasingly dense, like a current gathering momentum. The results of the Putnam competition are finally in. An official email is circulating. Stanford's name is proudly displayed on it. Third place nationally thanks to Blake Morgan, Halberstam's protege. The latter rushed to announce the news, inviting some journalists from the Stanford Gazzetto cover the event. An impromptu mini-press conference is held in the lobby. Blake, looking smug, poses with a certificate in hand. Flashes, laughter, praise. But a few lines further down in the same email, a detail troubles those who read to the end. National highest rated, Naomi Carter. Open application. Stanford University. A nervous silence falls in the dean's office. The competition organizers call to confirm. Yes, she beat all the candidates. By a wide margin. She solved problems no one else had touched. Her name is already circulating in our circles as a phenomenon. In the campus break room, the name circulates. The students reread the list in amazement. Naomi Carter? The quiet girl who works alone in the library? The one whose name no one knew? Social media is on fire. Article titles are piling up. Stanford's invisible student breaks all Putnam records. The genie from the shadows. Naomi Carter, a name that mathematics will never forget. Halberstam, pale, receives a direct call from the National Science Foundation. The voice on the other end is clear, enthusiastic. Dr. Halberstam, we are calling regarding Naomi Carter. We would like to invite her to present her work at the International Conference on Quantum Cryptography in Boston. He hangs up without a word. The walls of his office seem to close in on him. He thinks back to that raised hand, that soft voice he'd lowered, that calm smile that never crumbled under his contempt. He realizes he's never really looked at Naomi. He saw her color, her hoodie, her silence, but never her spirit. A few weeks later, Boston. The conference's large amphitheater vibrates with scholarly tension. Researchers from MIT, Princeton, Caltech, and international universities are gathered. Leading figures in cryptography, experts in applied mathematics. On the screen, the name appears. Naomi Carter, Inverse Structures in Post-Quantum Networks, a new approach. When she takes the stage, there is total silence. She wears a simple dress, her hair tied back simply. She looks at the audience. She doesn't tremble. Her gaze is steady. Her voice is clear, calm, and assured. She presents her discovery in detail. A new quantum encryption method based on a hybrid theory between topology and Galois matrices, which she developed alone, in the shadows. She demonstrates in real time a conjecture that even specialized laboratories considered too speculative. In the room, faces change. Some are frantically taking notes. Others exchange incredulous glances. A woman from MIT whispers. She's rewriting the field. Literally. Halberstam, sitting in the front row, is frozen. He doesn't take notes. He says nothing. His face is neutral, but his hands tense. The man, once so sure of himself, lowers his gaze. He's no longer the center. It's her, and she shines. Naomi ends her presentation with a sentence. Not mathematical, but human, deeply human. Talent exists everywhere, but the eyes that recognize it are rare. I am here for all those who are ignored, humiliated, and despised. Mathematics doesn't care about your skin color, your gender, or your accent. It is we, humans, who struggle to solve the equation of our prejudices. A silence, then applause. Timid at first, then more frank. Then a standing ovation. An entire room rises. Experts, deans, world-renowned researchers. They applaud, not a student, but a visionary. And Naomi, still calm, looks at the room standing before her. She thinks of Detroit, of the dusty libraries, of her mother in a white coat, of her father with his hands covered in motor oil. She thinks of her sleepless nights, of the indifference, of the laughter in the amphitheater. She smiles. She is no longer invisible. Naomi created a few years later a mathematics research institute for disadvantaged youth, funded by universities around the world. She became a professor at Harvard at 25. She published several books. She never forgot the day she was laughed at. And Halberstam? He's retiring early. When asked about Naomi Carter, he simply says, "She reminded me that even geniuses can wear hoodies." In her Detroit home, Naomi frames a sheet of paper, her old Putnam exam paper. At the bottom, an anonymous proofreader's note. This demonstration is of rare elegance. We may have just read the future, and this future has a name. Naomi Carter.